Well, welcome, Rob Chase, to this interview that we have with you as our endorsed candidate for the 4th Legislative District Representative. And it's position 2, correct? Position
Yes.
2. And congratulations on your recent Spokane County Republican Party endorsement. We're proud to have you as our endorsed candidate. So as we start this interview, we want to give you a chance to tell your constituents, our constituents, a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you are running.
Well, I guess my short biography is that I've been in Spokane Valley since Expo 74, and I've been married 44 years, 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and I'm have a very conservative viewpoint, and I go by the U.S. and state constitutions, and also the party platform I've adhered to, and I think my record proves that.
Yes. Do you want to share with people kind of your experience? Because you have a wealth of experience.
Well, I'm a generalist, and I ended up working for my father. Well, I started out working at the mines over there in Kellogg, in the smelter, and then I worked for my father for about 13 years. He had a zinc refining factory in Spokane Industrial Park, but a lot of those places with the EPA and high interest rates went under. But I stayed with them. You know, I didn't want to leave my dad in his position. But then I went back to college, and I finally got my degree from Eastern Washington University in operations management. And after that, I worked for it's called U.S. Dent Master. They had dent pulling machines, and I worked for Seattle First Bank. And then I worked for Hewlett Packard for 8 years, learned a lot there. And then, so I've been like the Spokane story, you know. Very few places have lasted very long with the economy the way it is. You know, I started out in mining, smelting, then went to electronics. Then I tried mortgage origination and real estate. And then I did all that before I got into politics. But for a lot of my life, I was an activist for a long time before I ever got elected to office.
Okay. Yeah. And then tell everybody, because I know this about you, but not everybody knows your different elected official experience, Rob. So
okay,
tell
well,
people
I was the Ron Paul coordinator for his campaign for Eastern Washington, 2008, 2012. But in 2010, I had a friend who said, well, you should run for treasurer. No one is running against Skip Joberg. And I had people say, well, you could do that. You could raise $50,000. You still wouldn't win. But I did a write-in, and I came in second, of course, in the primary. And then I won in the general. So that was great. I got a lot of experience, got a chance to actually use my education and experience in that job, because I'd always worn a lot of hats. And I'm a generalist by nature, too. I'm very well read. So I loved reading and researching a lot of the things. So we made a lot of improvements. I think we brought the treasurer's office into the 21st century. But the main thing that helped was that I formed teams. And no one had ever asked the people that worked there before, 30-some people, what they thought. Well, then they formed teams, and they made a lot of the advances. So the biggest thing was in my 2 elected positions was as county treasurer. I did a lot of lobbying in Olympia, and I got it so people could pay their late property taxes any amount, anytime. That took 3 years, passed unanimously once it hit the floor. And then I did the same thing with the penalties, because when I went to Olympia, I happened to just get on the finance committee. That was our bottleneck before that. And I talked to Senator Noel Frame. We hit it off, and she thought it was a great idea. We got it out of committee. And Mike Volz, my deputy treasurer, we started this conversation between the 2 of us 10 years before. They got onto the floor, and it passed unanimously, too. So that saved, I think Mike estimated, at least $23 million per year for people that needed it the most.
That's awesome. And so you also served in the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just tell people about that.
The problem with the legislature is during COVID, and I only got to be on the floor for 5 minutes, but like we're doing now, I did do everything on Zoom. Only the last 5 minutes, gavel came down, then they let me out on the floor for 5 minutes, and I got to see where my seat would have been if I'd gotten to sit in it, you know. But I did when I could. You would take like these trips, and I enjoyed talking to the Democrats and, you know, discussing things, you know, in a civil manner. And a lot of them were pretty good people. It's just like we always have to ask questions and you know, be open-minded about things.
Yeah, for sure. And you were shut out of your office. You were locked out of your offices.
Mhm.
Tell
No,
people
actually,
about that.
the second year, I refused to take the vaccinations because I knew, I think I'd been proven right. It was a bad deal, and so I was not allowed on the floor. But I was allowed in my office the second year, so I was able to see more of the representatives. I mean, a few of them would come to their office. You know, it was mostly empty, but I got to talk to a number of them, and we went out, you know, for coffee and dinner, and did both Republicans and Democrats. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the little taste I had of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you taking a stand for that, despite what they tried to do. So, and Rob, why are you running for this seat this year?
Well, I want to, you know, you only have one life to live. I want to live a meaningful life. I've done a lot of other things. In fact, now I'm working part-time for Angel Senior Care, and there's a guy, ambulatory guy. I take him to lunch, you know, a few times a week and church, and you know, it helps. You can't really make it on Social Security these days. I don't want to, you know, dip too deeply into my retirement account. You know, you never know what's around the corner. But I enjoy doing that. I didn't want to go like to a factory and build widgets. I want to do something more meaningful than that. So I'm enjoying doing that and getting to know the people at his church. It's a Lutheran church up by Whitworth, and talking to him, you know, too. He's from Chicago. He's a Democrat, but he saw a lot of history being made
Yeah.
in Chicago too. So you know, I don't know. My legislative aide Cecily Wright said she never had a job she didn't love. So that's I think that's inspiring. I had a lot of jobs I didn't love, but I still had to go to them, you know. So I'm trying to have that attitude. Whatever happens, uh, if one door closes, another one opens. There's always something else to do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're a true public servant, and I think your heart shows through that. I wanted to make sure that our constituents know what you helped protect in our community with you helped prevent Avista from selling to, was it
Well,
Canada?
yeah.
Yeah, will you talk about that, Rob? Because I think that's important.
Well, we started hearing to it. You know, we were late to the game, and uh, it was they're always saying, well, you can't do anything about it, it's a done deal. But I formed a coalition of Republicans and Democrats to try to do what we could, and I hired an attorney, Fred Kelly Grant from Napa, Idaho, who'd been part of the Sagebrush Rebellion. He always used a little known part of the National Environmental Policy Act of 1970, that if you were going to do something that affected local economy, education, a whole lot of different things, not just ecology, but you had to coordinate with local officials, and the Utilities and Transportation Commission had skipped that step. So I sued Utilities and Transportation Commission to stop it, so we could see, is this something we want to do? And coordinate does not mean cooperate. It means we have veto power. So, of course, I was attacked by the newspapers that because I did it as a county treasurer, that I'd done this frivolous things. But still, the problem was the CPAs we had on both sides looked at all the paperwork and they said our rates could actually triple. So we're trying to keep businesses here, let alone attract them. So that would have touched the tax base. So I had standing as county treasurer to do that. And then I was going for commissioner that time, and I came in first amongst the PCOs, and but yet it was deadlocked at the county level, 1-1, and then the governor got involved and appointed my opponent.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So why should citizens vote for you over your opponents?
I think it's experience that I have. I think the poet Milton said experience is the oracle of truth, because you have a better idea what's true and what's not the more you've been around. So I think I'm at the point now, too soon old, too late smart, but I've got that window of time, I think, where I can serve, but I can also mentor younger people and get to know them, be able to pass the baton off to people that would kind of carry on the cause being following the Constitution, which in fact, I'm almost done rereading the Federalist Papers, and 20 years later, I mean, a lot of things light up that I hadn't really noticed before. And it's not easy to read. Those guys talked almost in a flowery but beautiful language of 19th or 18th century Hamilton and Madison and a little bit of John Jay. So I'm enjoying doing that. So I'm a reader. I love reading what I can. And if I'm not reading, if I'm too zonked out from reading, I usually watch educational YouTubes on different subjects.
Yeah. And you have one of the top freedom index ratings in the legislature still to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got 100%. And it was, what was curious was out of 147 legislators, only 4 people got 100%, and 3 of them were from the 4th district. And that was Senator Padden, Bob McCaslin, and myself. The 4th was actually Jesse Young out by Bremerton, but that's no more. I mean, it's gone now. I hope we can get it back again someday. But we do need people that will follow the Constitution. We take a solemn oath to the Constitution, so we should be following it. And I've been disappointed. I think maybe in our newer people have come up. Although Jenny Graham got a 92%, which I think was pretty good. But if my simplest soundbite is, if we had followed the Constitution, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in today, because still it's not perfect, but it's the best document mankind has ever come up with. In fact, we don't have some tyrant or dictator running us or a oligarchy. It's we the people. We are ruling ourselves through our elected representatives. And so especially in the preamble that liberty and representation is what we should be about. But I kind of see maybe it's like secular, like the 4 turnings and those other waves that go through, that we were kind of losing, but hopefully we have a new zenith and bounce out of it again, like the Phoenix.
Yeah. Well, your stance on the Constitution, I mean, that needs to be our spine, our life, our Bible, and you've obviously voted like that. So that's great to hear. And that leads into my next question. Given the pervasiveness of money and lobbyists in government, along with the strong presence of special interest groups, how do you intend to effectively navigate and combat these pressures to genuinely represent and stand up for the interests of the citizens of the 4th legislative district? We know there's a lot of pressure to go along, to get along.
Yeah. He who pays the piper calls the tune. So you have to be careful. I mean, I'll accept their money, but still I try to call them as I see them. In fact, the very first donation I ever got from an artificial person was from ABC, Associated Builders and Contractors. And that lady actually was going to run against me after that, and that's Suzanne Schmidt. But I'd never before gotten a thing. And I kind of was thinking about a bill, Avista, because I had sued to stop them. They were pretty upset. So they donated $100,000 indirectly to my opponent, for that already had $100,000. So I was outspent 10 to 1. And I think that's wrong. I would like to present a bill that, since they claim an artificial person is the same as a human person, well, then they shouldn't be able to give any more than a human person. So to limit them to $1,200, before the primary and after the primary. And I think that would go a long ways to, pretty soon we're not representing the people, we're representing the lobbyists if we play that game.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about COVID. Given the challenges and controversies surrounding COVID-19 mandates, what specific steps would you advocate for at the state level to balance public health interests with individual liberties? And how will you work to prevent the overreaching use of mandates for measures such as masking and vaccinations?
Try to define emergency powers and make it a higher ladder to climb. Also, I would advocate a bill reimbursing anybody for their COVID fines, because it turned out that, especially the guy that had the coffee shop in the Valley, that he was fined $60,000 for not enforcing the mask thing. And he said, well, I'm not paid to enforce it. You guys enforce it. So Senator Padden and Bob McCaslin and I, we had a Zoom call with Labor and Industries, and Senator Padden told the lady that was running the meeting, I was a judge for a long time, and the penalty does not fit the crime, if you might want to call it a crime. And the next day, they doubled the penalty. That was talking about the arrogance of office, from Hamlet. Um, that still really bothers me that happened. And the guy had to, fold up and move and give up his business. It was a pretty good coffee shop. We all enjoyed that. So I think, the guys that really got hurt were the small businessmen. And of course, so they were all being bullied into something that turned out to be the COVID thing. How did that even happen? I mean, why were we even experimenting on, uh, you know, destruction and these viruses and gain of function? And it's still dubious because it's all sealed. That how did that actually get out? So a lot of us were attacked for questioning it. Well, I questioned it, and I was trying to get my mind around it. And I said on my own Facebook page, I said, why would anybody take a vaccine that's not a vaccine? It was gene therapy. And it's not been tested, except for all the animals died in the test, and you can't sue for damages. It violates the Nuremberg Code. And also, there's other alternative treatments available, like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And if any doctor, and a lot of them are celebrated doctors, brought that up, they were defrocked, and censored. And then, and besides, these guys are all eugenicists. They want a not smaller world population. But then I ended up on the Spokesman Review front page. Can you believe Representative Rob Chase is, questioning these people are just trying to do us good. So, but I think you have to be a watchman on the wall. And even if you're going to take a hit for it, and I did, then you still have to warn the constituents, because biblically you're just as responsible as the people that are causing the damage, if you don't warn people in that capacity.
Yeah.
So I think I'm glad I did do that. And I'm glad I did do, it hurt me to warn people about Avista and to try to stop it. But if I hadn't done it, I would feel worse than I did if I had gotten past that. So the COVID thing, I don't think the vaccines did anybody any good. In fact, they probably killed millions of people all around the world. But even worse than that, I think, was the between you and I think you knew these same people too. We lost 6 friends who passed away, not from COVID, but from the protocol for treatment of COVID, giving them remdesivir and putting a mask on their face. It killed them. So hopefully a lot of this stuff will come out. It's starting to come out now, and hopefully there will be some recriminations for those who were responsible.
Well, and also, you had all that, and then you had the people that got to choose, like you're talking about this gentleman that lost his business. I mean, they were people that were basically, free to keep their businesses open, like the big box stores. And then they're with the moms and pop stores that lost their livelihoods.
Yeah,
how do we prevent that from happening in the future?
To get together. And so I think we're in danger of becoming a I don't know, leftist country or banana republic or whatever, or the rule of law. You got to stand for the rule of law. But so many people, especially with this instead of warfare, lawfare that you're seeing, they will twist the law. And then, I think there was a lot of proof, like the election was stolen, but the judges refused to hear the cases, the evidence that people had, saying they had no standing.
Yeah.
So we need to become more of a, I guess, rule-based society, even if whether you're Christian or not. There's a lot of pagans that still have that inner thing. The truth is what matters most.
Yeah, for sure. So, Rob, this has got a few parts to it. So, address what you can here. How do you plan to address the most pressing issues facing our constituents, such as illegal immigration, cost of living and inflation, crime, and education?
Illegal immigration, that's more of a federal thing. It's hard to do a lot about that. But what's our response to the people that are coming up here? It's not a good thing. In the 19th century, we had waves of Germans, Italians, Irish, Scandinavians that came over here, and that was a melting pot. And we had other, of course, the blacks that were brought over here against their will, but also indigenous peoples too. But I think when the frontier's already been settled, we already have a big enough population. So Now we have to be a lot more selective about who we do bring in. So we do want people that will add value to our society. But when you bring in, have the borders wide open, and you're not a nation if you don't have borders, then you become a mosaic, like the Balkans, So then we see that now we've got different people fighting, different factions fighting against each other. So I really do think there is and it's in their writings. Uh, People for hundreds of years have talked about a world government, and I think that's actually scripturally prophetic. Is what's we're going through that now. It doesn't mean we shouldn't resist it though, but also the people that are here, we do have to um, treat the sojourners with justice, and I think we win more, uh, catch more flies with honey. So we should be nice to these people when they come up. Don't be mean to them. Maybe some of them will stay, like our ancestors stayed. And the other nice thing, I belong to this World Prayer Group thing that they think it's kind of a boon for people, because a lot of these people, especially from Central America, there's languages that they've never been able to interpret the Bible, study the Bible in that language. But if these people can stay here long enough to learn English, they will probably go back to and become Christians. They'll probably go back to their tribes and indigenous places, and pretty soon that's our command. That's the last thing Jesus said. Go out to all nations. Nations also, I think, is different ethnic groups, and like I think the Philippines, I don't know how many different languages. I have a friend from Philippines. They have like 60 different languages with all the different islands, that they have too. So there's thousands of these different languages all around the world. So like what man meant for evil, God can turn to good.
Yeah. And how about cost of living, inflation, or crime, or education?
That's another thing is federal. Although taxes are going up and up, and I think that's just crazy. I fought against taxes. The Washington State budget went way past inflation. It doubled in 10 years. So I think we need to get back to a good sense economics, not modern monetary theory, which is just issuing bonds, quantitative easing. And I did run for Congress in 2002, and at that time the debt was $6 trillion, and I warned about that. But now it's $35 trillion, is well above the gross national product even. So it's impossible to pay all these other things that are trillions of dollars that are unfunded mandates with Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, student loans. It's all there has to be an answer for it. I think there probably is somehow, but we have to get through this by returning back to I think like a gold standard or something where it it has responsibility. If you only have so much you can spend, you have to work within your means. But with this paper and money, in fact, I remember that day very well when Nixon went off the gold standard. I was working at Sunshine Mine, and the miners were all talking about it, what a bad idea that was. And if you look at, then that happened. That was already after we had the Great Society and Vietnam and the space race and all these other things. It wasn't until the Reagan administration we were over $1 trillion. And now I just think it's like Howard and Clivens, those professors at Columbia University, wanted to destroy America. They said, well, we can't destroy them militarily, but we can get them to spend themselves into bankruptcy and not be able to afford a military. And that's happening now.
Yeah. And just our taxes in our state, right? We were looking at cap and trade. Obviously the people are doing these initiatives to try to reverse some of those bad
But,
laws.
I was a big part of the initiatives. I spent a lot of time when maybe I should have been campaigning, but I thought it was so important to get these initiatives. And of course, we started out with 11 of them, but we didn't quite know. And actually, it's very smart of Brian Haywood to do that, because he didn't really put a lot of money into it. But that gave him the right number. So, okay, 6, and I could put $7 million into it. And all these initiatives, we needed 300,000 signatures. We got well above 400,000, and they all passed. So I got to be there on that signing day. But when we turned them into, the Secretary of State to count. And that's the biggest step I've ever seen in my lifetime in Washington State to fight back against it. But it seems like we're always reacting instead of being proactive about things. So I would like to try to find more proactive common cause things to accomplish when I'm in Olympia that benefit everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So final comments to our constituents.
Well, I do think my motto is truth matters, and we've got to uh, always be searching for the truth. And but you can't find truth if you don't follow scientific method, even, and have discussion about things. I think the censorship of people who aren't politically at the time correct, you should allow any kind of discussion. And we all take an oath to the Constitution, and it's a solemn vow. But so many people with that New American Freedom Index, especially on the Democrat side, have zeros. Like half of them do, that they've followed the Constitution. So I think, if I can get there, I can reason with people. I'm a civil person. I try to get along with everybody as I can and have good discussions. And I've been doing that. Some of the people I work with on them, say the Trans-Pacific Partnership and Vista, we're still good friends. In fact, we have a Zoom meeting Friday morning and just talk about what is true, what's been propaganda that's been put into our heads, and what really, if we think for ourselves, are solutions to things. So I enjoy that group too.
Yeah, awesome. One other question for you, since the Republicans are in the minority in the legislature, Rob,
Mhm.
how do you plan to attack and strategize and utilize what you can to make a difference in the legislation and not
Well,
just
what I've
be
always
rolled
done,
over?
you just, unless you're brilliant, and I don't know anybody that's been able to do this, to have a whole wave or a revival of, you do it one by one, and you're polite to people. You don't start screaming because you just try to use logic and wisdom to get people to come over your side. And in fact, that's what I did with Noel Frame. We became pretty good friends. There was a few bills I supported, left my caucus and supported them on, that I thought I knew certain things about, that they could be good bills. So I don't mind crossing the aisle. I think uh, we don't necessarily need to get Republicans elected so much as people are going to follow the Constitution.
Yeah. Yep. Yep, for sure. Finally, where can people go to engage with you and donate to your campaign, Rob?
Okay, electrobchase.com, and you can mail a check to PO Box 612, Liberty Lake 99019, or I've got Anadot. I'm trying that crowdfunding source now. That seems to work very well because it does give you the name and address of the people, so you can put it right on your PDCs. And my treasurer is Sharon Hannock. And Sharon Hannock is running for state treasurer. So I'm hoping she makes it, because there's only two people that filed for that. She had tried that once before, but hopefully there is the red wave actually materializes this time. And she's brilliant, and that's the most important person you can have in a campaign, is a treasurer that's going to make
Yes.
sure all the PDCs are filed and all that. And I've done this as like my 10th race, I think. So I don't really need a manager. I kind of already know pretty much what I need to do or not do. But like we said, we both didn't make it 2 years ago. Victory belongs to the Lord. So we accept his will and go on and try to be productive.
That's right. Well, thank you, Rob Chase, for 4th District Representative,
Okay.
position 2, a man of compassion, a man of principles, and a we the people representative for the people. So thank you again, Rob, for spending time with us. We really appreciate it, and best of luck.
Thank you, MJ. This is nice. Good
Okay,
to see you again.
you too.